All right, guys, just testing this. Can you give me a thumbs up if you hear me? Hey, what's up, guys? What's up, everybody? Fala aí, pessoal. Então dá para me ouvir aí? You guys hear me fine? Testing out a new setup here on the computer, new home, and all of that. Cool. Right on. Right on. Right on. So I'm gonna give a couple minutes. Start at 6 p.m. sharp, but in the meantime, we can just chat a little bit or just kind of talk. Um, so Renato is asking if I'm gonna do some paintings live. Yeah, I mean, eventually, I guess once I get a little bit better at it. But yeah, for sure, I definitely want to share more of my process of how I'm studying and learning and all of that. And maybe this is a good opportunity to to use this community, to use this channel for. We'll see. I have so many plans, lots of stuff planned now that I'm back and feeling inspired. I went through some, dark moments a couple years ago, and now I'm fully recovered. Maybe I'll do a video about that. But now that I'm fully recovered and back on track, it's time to, you know, share and spread some of the love with everybody. So, what's up, Gustavo? How's it going, man? Yeah, thanks, Mike. Thanks. What's up, Rodolfo? Uh, what's up, Delcito? Delcio, my man. Much love to you back, my brother. Um, hey, what's up, Mateos? What's up, David? Oh, thanks for letting me know. So actually, the anatomy tutorials, the anatomy book thing, it's something that I'm trying to bring back. I actually started anatomy studies, sketches studies, volume two. Uh, I've been thinking about what to do, what kind of not only parts of the body, but what else do I feel inspired in, studying and sketching. So this is in the plans. Like I said, I have a lot of stuff planned. Um, it's one of them, and maybe even release a printed book, like a real book eventually. That's definitely something that feels very exciting to me to have, like a physical book. I participated on, many books already in my career. I'm thankful for that, but I never had, my own thing. So maybe eventually, I'll be able to do that. But time will tell, one step at a time. Uh, Yeah, painting is being so much fun. It is very hard. It's very different, but honestly, I always wanted to paint. But I devoted most of my time to sculpting, digital art, and all of that stuff. So now that I'm, finding myself a little bit more time and feeling a little bit more connected with painting in general, it's been very satisfying. Um, so it's super cool. I'm definitely want to keep doing that more and more. Uh, Anatomy workshop someday. Yes. Also in the plans. Lots of stuff planned. I don't want to get too much into all of the plans because, you know, let me get back into it one step at a time. But I've been thinking a lot about how I can give back to the community and, maybe build what I would like to see that I haven't seen yet. Maybe I can find a way of, building that myself. Something that it's, much bigger than me. Uh, all right, couple more minutes to get into this portfolio review thing. Hopefully, it's gonna be a fun one. I picked out five, eight artists. Different ranges of seniority. Um, and I have Photoshop open, so I might do some paint overs. Like maybe try to point out things that I like that I would change. Um, and maybe we can hang out a little bit and just kind of answer some questions. So let's see. Hey Arthur, appreciated you staying late. Yeah, I also go to bed very early. Usually I go to bed by 8:30, 9 p.m. with the kids, but I tend to wake up like super early in the morning. 5:30 every day. But no, I appreciated you staying late. Does it feel weird having so much freedom to rotate around your 3D models and then stuck to a single view while painting? It does. I used to struggle with this concept so much before, especially because I used to just when you're just sculpting, you actually tend to kind of ignore some of the shapes and some of the patterns that you see because of lights and all of that because you're really trying to um, ultimately dissect the image and reconstruct that in your head of what a 3D version would look like, right? So, and now I'm really relying on like lighting and shadow and shapes and all of those things to kind of do the painting. So it's very different, but I don't think it doesn't restrain me or set boundaries for me. I think it just gives me opportunities to explore things that you cannot really explore in 3D. It's just a different type of medium, a different type of expression, I guess. Um, Fala, Fabiano, quanto tempo? Salve, galera, salve, galera. Mais um minutinho aí. It's nice to see a lot of folks here talking to each other. That's kind of a dream coming true to me, the sort of community you guys connecting within yourselves. So I definitely encourage you guys talking to each other. Maybe this is not the best forum for that, but uh, you know, uh, I really love seeing that because that's how I started. You sort of build your group of friends, and then through that you inspire each other, and that's what keeps you motivated to keep going, right? So that's pretty cool to see. Fala, Mike. So I got a new microphone. Hopefully my voice is fine. You guys hear me well? Is it too low, too loud, or just perfect? Hopefully just perfect because this was not cheap. Just let me know. All right, we're gonna start soon. Perfect. That's great to hear. So it was worth the investment. Just perfect. Great. All right. So I guess we can just get started. I don't know. So Gabriel Augusto, Gabriel Augusto, are you here? If you're here, we're gonna start with your portfolio. If you're not here, you can check this uh, recording session. Hey, good to see you here, buddy. All right, so let's see. Let's see if I can swap this to my desktop. All right, just bear with me. I never done this whole streaming thing, so this is my first time. Hopefully, I'll get better as time goes on. But there you go. So this is Gabriel Augusto, a character artist from Brazil, and you share your portfolio with me. So let's just take a quick look. So there are many different ways to kind of analyze these portfolios, right? Like I can come from a perspective that you are applying for a job or you're just looking to kind of improve your skills, and depending on where you are in your career. So there are like so many different factors that can come into play here. What I'm gonna do here, because we cannot do a lot of back and forth in the communication, what I'm gonna do here for today at least is just gonna look at a couple of the pieces and see if I can find some, like clear instructions on what I would suggest for these pieces to look to get a little bit better. I'm not gonna try to frame any one of these portfolios in a in a in a scenario where you are applying for a specific job. Does it fit, does it not fit, because again, like I said, like multiple factors play into that. We can do a session like that a different day. Maybe I'll say like, hey, just send me portfolios if you are applying for like a senior position at any studio out there, and I can give you my thoughts on that, on how would that possibly go and what I would do differently. But today, let's just kind of look at the artwork and see if I can find some easy wins for you all. Okay, that makes sense. I should have started with that, but let's just go. So um pretty cool stuff here. I can totally, just by the thumbnails, right, I can kind of move through and see some sort of pattern of evolution and resolution and kind of fidelity gain in some of these pieces. Just let's look at this Unreal piece, which for game artists trying to break in the industry or even working in the industry, I think it's very important to present your stuff, your models, if they are game ready models, in the engine. And more Unreal Engine has been proven to be much easier to use, and it also presents some challenges, which I think it's really relevant that as time goes on for you to be learning how to face and how to deal with those. The lighting in Unreal, it's very different than in Marmoset, and all of that. So I think it's important to kind of understand how to set up materials, and so this is pretty cool. Um, a couple thoughts, and I looked through all of these portfolios beforehand. So a couple thoughts on you, Gabriel. The way you're presenting your work here, and I love that you actually built a little scene, and like you're doing all of the good stuff there. On the actual models themselves, the metals and some of the definitions on the materials in general, I think they are lacking a little bit. Um, not only the texturing of the materials itself, but the actual materials, they are not really reading very clearly. They are very, maybe too simple, and some of these metals are kind of a little bit cumbersome on how you did your glossiness or your roughness maps, and they are lacking a little bit of that, you know, small sort of fidelity. What I'm trying to say, like if you look at this sword here, for example, it feels like you just apply like a random noise, like a cloud mask across the entire blade. So I'm not seeing like little edges here, like little kind of wear and tear in specific areas. The metals are also not shiny. So whenever working with metals, it's good to get that contrast between, very shiny and reflective with, like more opaque and kind of dry and that sort of thing. So that gives you the pop that we are always looking for. So that's on the texturing side. Like the actual pose that you have here, I feel like it's very stiff. Uh, so maybe I'll try to force a little bit more the contrapposto. Some of these folds in the back, they don't feel like very natural, which doesn't really help with the pose. To there's like when it comes to the actual model, like the modeling of the face, I think it looks pretty cool. Um, Definitely some limitations on the hair you're getting here. I think the hair, it's a very different level than what the head could be. So what I'm trying to say is that it looks like you develop your skills on the modeling side much further than on your hair techniques. So the hair is feeling very disconnected from the quality that I see on the face, from the actual um, hair itself, on the shaders, but also on the placement of these cards. And maybe you could be exploring grooms here, like using the strengths, doing the groom in X Gen or Houdini, and kind of placing that in Unreal directly. But overall, like really good execution on all of the details. You have really good separation of pieces. So overall, it's a solid piece, well executed. Let's see one more, because I was looking at this one here before. Yeah, so this one, it's same deal. I saw that you built out of a concept here. Some of these concepts may have call outs, some of these concepts may not have call outs. Some of these concepts have great material definition, others won't have all of that, right? So you need to be translating some of these things and the style into what you're building, right? So the things that stood out to me, I think this is a much stronger piece than the one we were looking at. The pose also feels a little bit too stiff for me. I will try to make it a little bit more dynamic and more imposing. So maybe rotating the head a little bit more and kind of, again, like building that simple contrapposto and, kind of just making a little bit more, framing that a little bit better so it has more feeling and it generates more feelings to the audience, right? Uh, this stuff here is cool. You're getting some of that weight distribution here. I like that. I don't like that these three objects, they're like very parallel. So I would probably just kind of, let's see if I can just grab, like, snap a screenshot here real quick. So I would probably just, do something like this, hold on. Where's my tablet? Hold on. All right, of course. All right, there you go. So, yeah, so like maybe one can be here, another one can be there, and then this guy can be here. Like those little things here can be contributing. The thing that stood out to me the most, though, like, are like these two pieces here, right? So, uh, I saw the concept and I know they are like kind of really close to the body, but I would really try to kind of emphasize some of these kind of negative shapes here and really kind of try to break this silhouette further. This piece here could be maybe a little bit lower here. So, you get another like clear, like V shape here. Um, okay, I'm drawing it the same. Anyway, so, um, like always try to make silhouettes that are kind of interesting and building overlaps. So you see like how this is very close to this edge. So this guy here could be a little bit here, and then this guy could have like a little bit of like a bigger overlap here. So like creating some of these like interesting shapes, it helps with the readability of all of these pieces. So similar with this piece here too, it's kind of sitting in a very weird spot, and it's not, reading very well, like this bend on the arm. And I know you are actually trying to sculpt some of these folds, but then when you pose this, look at like how round this arm looks, and this really breaks, like the whole illusion of movement. So here I would expect, like a fold here and then a fold there, another fold here, stuff like this. Um, and this sort of like having like some of these hard shapes here will help you with the momentum and with the attitude of some of these poses. When it comes to the materials, and this is pretty similar to the other one that I talked about, you can see like the metals here, some areas that are kind of looking nice, but the majority of the metal feels a little bit too rough. So it's kind of missing that pop that we all like to see in metal. So if I go back to this piece here, you added a little bit of blood, and this is like a classic issue of having metal and non-metal workflow, right? Like now you're getting this sort of this sort of pattern here, like this is the edge of like a non-metal surface with the metal, and then you're getting like that weird artifact. So here you can try to increase, like sharpen like the blur in the mask, so then you get just the blood. But again, like the blood could have a normal map, right? Like let's just kind of do a little breakdown on this, what I would do here, right? So imagine that this surface here of the blood is actually a surface built on top of this geometry, right? So you have your porous surface like this, and then now you are dropping, a pool of blood here. So what the blood is gonna do, maybe this is very obvious, right? But what the blood is gonna do, the blood's gonna fill all of this area here, right? So this is blood. Maybe this is counterintuitive because this is green, but you know what I'm saying? Like, so if your back surface, which is your skin, or if your sword here, your dagger, whatever, right? Like if that surface has a lot of pores, imagine that the blood will be covering all of these pores. So you would have not only a different normal map for this area here, like with a little bit of like thickness and a little bit of like detail here, something like this, so it feels a little three-dimensional. but you also have some sort of a different specular. So the specular will come from the glossiness or the roughness map, right? So I would expect the sword to have some of this breakup that you have here, but then here we need to make it very shiny and very glossy because the blood will be very glossy, right? Similar here. So one way that you can be doing this on the skin is depending on how you're building your material, you can input the same blood mask as an override for the normal. So then the normal on this area will be, somewhat flat and, maybe a little bit cylindrical, but somewhat flatter and kind of overriding this styler or this somewhat texture that you have here, right? So then you have, like all of this crazy surface, all of the pores, and then you have a really nice breakup, making this blood very smooth and shiny, and again, creating contrast on the lighting, creating contrast on the colors. And you're gonna see me talking about contrast on everything that I do because it's truly how we build good art. Like the contrast between the forms and the shapes and organizing the chaos and all of that stuff that I truly believe that helps us on whenever we are making stuff. So yeah, apart from that, I mean, this is a really good piece. I really like the execution. You have a lot of like different elements here. I like this head a lot. I like that you have like a little bit of movement dripping from these heads, and all in all, it's a really really solid piece. So kudos on that. Uh, Maybe the skin and the leatherish of the dragon, like scales and whatnot here, could also be a little bit, again, like bringing a little bit of contrast from those pieces to the metals. Maybe adding a little bit more subsurface to those areas, and like try to find contrast between all of the material properties, right? So if you have metal and it's very dry on the subsurface level, right, like there's no scattering there, then you have like a nice leatherish, some sort of like dragon skin. Try to add subsurface to that, and then you have another leather or like a cloth piece, like on the necklace, for example, on the neck. That piece can have a very cloth-ish shader, right? So then, which has a different response to the lighting. Maybe you can use, retroreflectivity or some sort of a Fresnel look or whatever, But the idea is that you're now breaking all of these elements apart and like making them stand out as they are. So if that makes sense, right? Like those containers, I guess, on the letter here, maybe they could have a little bit of a parallax, they could have a little bit of like glow emissive on the inside, lots of different ideas on things here that you could do. But like to me, ultimately the metal is the piece, it's the thing that is stood out the most negatively on all of your pieces that I looked at. But overall, dude, you're doing a really good job, and I can see that you're pushing yourself, like the sculpting and the modeling of the head looks really, really good. I like the hair. This is a huge improvement on this hair from the past one. So yeah, kudos. Keep going. And you're definitely improving. So yeah, hopefully that helped. All right, moving on to the next one. Let's see. All right. Good stuff. All right, so here I have Henrique. Henrique Lima, if you are here. Thanks for sending me your portfolio, and let's just take a quick look. Hey, what's up? What's up, guys? All right, so yeah, I mean, lots of different varieties of work here, right? So I'm gonna, looks like you are trying different things, and you're probably, doing some, different styles and exploring different things in your journey, and I think that's beautiful, and I think that's what you should be doing. And I see an attempt of doing, like some dreadlocks and real-time hair, and this is really cool to see. This actually came out really nice. What I would do here, I see some flyaways here, but they all seem to be duplicated equally across all of these hairs. I would just try to add more breakups, right? Like maybe get a bigger card, smaller cards, and try to add more massiness to all of these groups of hair, all of these dreadlocks. But like overall, it came out really good. Some of this metal, it looks pretty simple, but It looks like this is from a couple years old, so you are definitely improving. Let's take a look here. This is cool. So this is for miniature. Yeah, I can tell by the some of the size of the details. This is pretty cool. I like the pose. Uh, Maybe the proportions feel a little bit off, if you will. A quick way of checking. Obviously, you can stylize proportions, right? Like, but it doesn't look stylized to me, the proportion. So that's why I'm picking on that. You can kind of do like a quick. Let me just kind of show you guys because you guys don't see my fingers on my screen. But like the quickest way I tend to use, or the quickest proportion, I should say. I just like to check, like side, like height to the crotch, like this, usually on a more, like heroic proportion should be kind of equal to, half and half. So obviously these change and there are like many different rules. So I'm not going to go into all of those details, right? Like, but roughly, like when I look at this piece, it feels like to me, it said right away the legs feel short. So then what I usually do, I just like to check this, and it tells me that the legs are short. It doesn't necessarily mean that the legs are short. Maybe the crotch is too low, but then I look at the size of the head compared to the body, and I don't like doing like six heads, six heads, seven heads, all of that stuff. I kind of go by feel. But whenever I'm in doubt, and then I go check, like some of these things. So I'll check with this first, and then I like to check, the length of the arm with position of the knees. And then you can check like the length of the thighs compared to the length of the lower legs. And then you go to the torso, and then you look at the size of the head, and then you start matching. So overall, like a couple things here, right? Like I like, let me just kind of erase this mess here. I like how you are kind of building some of these things out here. Nice movement. I would probably do the same thing here, like bow this out a little bit more or just flare it out a little bit. So then every time you can find interesting areas to do like pinching and, like compressing things, I think it helps with making things more interesting. So, like here, I would probably just kind of flare it out a little bit and, like continue, this kind of curvature shape and like kind of this flow that goes this way. So same thing here, right? Like I would probably just move this out and then kind of go this way just to kind of keep some of this flow going. So just by doing this a little bit, it gives a little bit more movement. These things here are fine, like this elbow feels a little bit weird here. Like it's giving like this like wide stance. And maybe you could rotate the torso a little bit more, so then you kind of rotate the torso a little bit more to this way. So then there's a little bit more movement. So he's not only looking to the side, but also his whole body is it's moving. And then maybe this elbow, you could bring this elbow, rotate this elbow in a little bit more. So it feels like, the whole body is kind of moving. Uh, but or maybe just kind of pull it up a little bit more so you can actually feel that it's actually pulling the arrow rather than just kind of touching there. Or it could be a little bit more, like bringing a little bit more action, kind of. Or then you can actually flare out, right? And now that I'm doing this, I'm actually realizing maybe you can actually flare out, but then you twist the whole body, so then you get a different silhouette. Right now you're just kind of very stiff, right? Like, so how can you arch a little bit more? And I guess this is similar to the previous one that I was looking at, right? Like the portfolio. Cool, but this is really cool. Good stuff. I like that it's moving and it's in motion. Let's like take a look at this quick creature here. This is cool. The thing that well, first of all, like if you're trying to match this concept, I think it's a little bit far from the concept, especially like the face and the mouth. You can actually see like like how wider your teeth is going, like the position of the eyes compared to the horns and to the mouth, and like yours. I'm reading. Let me just kind of do this real quick, so because I think this is really important to be able to match some of these concepts, because ultimately at work, working at a game studio, that's mostly what we're going to be doing. So it's important to really see this and understand like what is not being translated, right? And so if we look at, just kind of give you guys a couple tips here, right? So if we look at the proportion, like how small this is compared to this whole head, I'm exaggerating, right? So you guys can see the idea, but look how big the features are and how small the head is compared to everything else, right? What this gives is a sense of like this creature is much smaller, and then this guy here is like an ogre, right? So it feels like tiny face, crazy features, but this guy is massive and large and big. Your guys feel it looks like he's kind of a tiny dude because of the features of the face are so big, making the head so big that the body becomes very small in a sort of a very stylized manner. But then your shapes are not very stylized, uh, and are very very simple, right? Like if you look at like some of these forms here, you can actually see like these volumes are sagging and kind of falling, and then you have a very clear cut of like this whole head here. So it's really missing a little bit of transition and a little bit of movement, and some of the secondary folds. You can actually see like this actually goes in here, and then it goes out, and then it goes in and it goes out. So there's like three kind of chins, if you will. Like yours is just like one round shape here, right? So that's kind of what I would try to do. It's build a little bit more forms, and you can see that I have all of these other forms because like some of these silhouette shapes are actually helping me see these extra forms. And there's a little bit of shadow here, which tells me that there's like a recession there and another subfold here, and lots of things that we could be doing with this concept. But overall, like the colors, and obviously they are different, but the importance here is that these, like pale skin really goes well with like the dark leather, and then your dark leather, and you're getting like a very kind of a dark red, which brings to a very similar value, regardless of, if we just kind of do a, why is this not set up? Hold on. This is I like to do a lot too. So if you go into view proof setup, and then you can change to custom, and then you can do I think I do like a 20% dot gain 20%. But anyway, so if you look like do like Control Y, so if you go in here, you can actually see like how closer this is in value, and how much different this is, right? So you have like a dark and then white, like light value, and then here you have like two very dark values here. So anyways, all of those little things kind of help you uh build interesting characters, and there is a reason why you picked this concept, because you probably liked it. So what is missing there, like that's the whole idea. You can change stuff as much as you want, but I think it's important to understand like what you're changing and why you're changing, and how to change, and what to not change, all that sort of thing. Especially the more we go into the industry where there's a concept team, idealizing the characters, the models, and we need to be either translating that or, like bringing that to life. It's important to really be able to capture all of those things and understand what actually makes those characters, right? Anyways, good stuff, man. Keep going. I also see that you are exploring different styles, and I would say keep doing that. It's great to see, and keep it up. All right. All right. All right. All right. Let's see. Let's grab someone that is not Brazilian, because I think so far I swear that I didn't pick on. It was just like totally random. I open a bunch of people, and I don't want to be just favoring Brazilians, but I'm fine with just doing Brazilians as well. Let's just kind of look at the chat here real quick. Uh, I guess I lost track, so my bad. There is a bunch of messages here, so let's just see. Maybe I'll go back to the chat later. Sorry. Uh, anyways, what's up, everybody? What's up? Is this 3D art only? No, actually, it could be anything. But I have an Instagram channel channel. Is that how you call it? There's an Instagram art hub that I created. It's like a channel thing. It's like a new message thingy that they added. Anyway, so I asked people to send me portfolios there, and then I got a bunch of them, and then I selected a couple, and I'm just reviewing. But it doesn't. It's not necessarily just 3D or 2D or anything like that. Um, yeah. All right. So let's keep going. So this is Arthur. Hi, Arthur. If you're here, if you're not here, um, hopefully you're gonna be able to catch this live later. It's gonna be recorded on the YouTube. Anyways, let's keep going. So yeah, I look at this earlier, lots of cool stuff, and I see you're doing some props, some like environment modeling, some vehicles. But then it looks like you, after that point, you ended up getting more into the actual character related stuff. So that's pretty cool to see. I see some God of War stuff as well, so that's dope. We're gonna click on that in a little bit, but let's just see. Like, this stood out to me. I like how it popped from the lighting, the details that you built. So this is a cool. I like the overall proportions and the overall shapes, and the simplicity of the proportions. I think what's like what I would do here, you are going from, let me just grab this image here, right? So uh, you are basically going from very primary forms, which are what define this like big shapes here. So we call those primary forms. So you're going from like these big shapes into texture, surface level details, which gives a very kind of uh, superficial, hard to put in words. It gives a very fake or unnatural or uncanny sort of look, because basically what makes up a lot of these very like harsh wrinkles, it's actually the skin that tends to fold over and over and breaks up the skin, right? And then you start getting some of those creases and those folds. um, some of those big wrinkles are actually folds of skin as well. So whenever we get like a very simple form with a lot of wrinkles on top, it gives this very uncanny look that, like, it just looks very unnatural, if you will. I'm not saying this is a rule, but in terms of the believability of this character here, like like, because he's very skinny, and I'm just speaking on a random asset here, but just because he's very skinny, I would expect to see a little bit more muscle definition. I'm not saying that this guy needs to be shredded, but a little bit more muscle anatomy built on these forms, right? Like, so the forms, they have a little bit of a purpose, and they are not just kind of there because they are there. Like, so for example, you don't need to kind of carve out like this V shape here, but insinuating that, or just kind of pretending that there's something underneath the skin, a very thick skin, very leathery skin, for example, it's enough, right? So if you look at a cow, for example, like the belly of the cow, maybe there's a large surface there that it's very flat, if you will, empty, but there is gravity. And then at the bottom, there's going to be like a big volume of that skin folding over. And that's what gives you the sensibility, like the feeling that everything kind of it's falling into place. Like what you're doing here, for example, could potentially work very well. So you have like this knee cap, the skin is kind of, maybe you have like a little bit like of wrinkle here and a wrinkle there. And then the skin doesn't have to be all wrinkly here, right? That's not what I'm saying. But then you have like this insinuation, this indication here, this is wrinkly skin, and then it folds, and then at this contact point here, and then it folds again, right? Which gives this kind of very soft look to the skin sliding on top of the muscles and on top of the bones. But overall, like, basically, in other words, right, like I would develop like the secondary forms here a little bit more, which are like really the structures, the anatomy, the structures of the rib cage here, some of these muscle structures that it would be important to kind of break out. And like you see, like the silhouette here is just like a one round shape maybe you can kind of break it up with, you have like the rib cage here, and then it goes in and then it goes out again. Finding that those interesting areas. Um, Similar, same with the face, similar everything else. But overall, like I think you captured, the essence uh, of the champion, pretty well. Let's see. Some of these anatomy studies, I think they are cool. I looked the other day. I think you are, getting the hang of default human body, if you will. So this is really good to see. You're trying to understand like where things lay on top of each other, the placement of the big groups and all of that. So this is pretty cool. Doesn't look super natural yet. So the next step here would be to start actually looking at, anatomy models and bodybuilders, if you will, and all of that, and seeing how you break those forms even further into like smaller details, and getting some of the subtle movements and some of the subtle directions that happen. So for example, you have your uh you know uh, you have like those guys here, right? So I like to think that if you this is a tip that a friend of mine gave me, but if you put your thumb here and then you spread your fingers, you're gonna have like one finger, like pointing in this direction, this direction, this direction, and this direction. So this is usually, like the direction that these muscles follow, and they are mainly this because they are actually attached to all of the ribs, right? So then you have like this crisscross scratch pattern. But basically, like what I see here, they are like all, straight lines. So, once you start getting to this level of anatomy, I think it's important to start noting some of those subtle changes, subtle directions, right? Like the insertions of the muscles and where they go to, where they travel, where they are positioned. So I think this is pretty cool. But good job here. I like the overall proportions; is spot on. So it looks like you have a really good understanding of proportions and as a whole. This looks like it was a project you did at school. I really like the texturing, some of the head and the breakup of the accessories. I can see like a huge evolution, like development here from your past projects. It's pretty cool. The beard looks pretty good too. A couple of things stood out to me on this piece, and I guess some of this. Let me just kind of copy this again. The material definition here, like some of this leather and uh, looks really, really nice. I would say like this is a very large area without a lot of things happening. And it's not that we always need stuff to happen, but there is not enough contrast, or there's nothing here really happening. So I'm not saying like we need to add stuff all the time, right? Like that's not my point, but maybe actually removing things here could even be better. So for example, let me just give a suggestion. So let's say you do have some of this edge wear and tear here, right? Like kind of going around the edges, and then you have the stream gold and all of those things. Maybe you have like a little bit of a area of rest here. So maybe you just kind of build like something a little bit flatter here. Obviously I'm doing this, like very poorly, but I just imagine that this is a little bit flatter. So then my eyes actually rest from when it's going from this direction. And then you're like, oh, details, this is pretty cool. And then it goes here. Oh, okay, there is like an empty area here. So I just kind of keep scrolling through, and then I see all of those details, right? So like building this sort of like area of rest gives you the ability to make whatever it's around it pop much more than if it's all noisy, right? Like with its own noise, I'm seeing like noise, 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 and then it goes here, noise, 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 and then it goes here, 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 and then everything becomes very noisy, right? And then when everything becomes noisy, nothing is noisy anymore. That's kind of the sense. I really like the head. I think the head looks really, really good. So good job on that. The beard here, this area here looks very flat, so I think you could actually add a couple different cards, like and shape in the different directions. Like some of these guys could be here. You can have like some flyaways, like some, like white strands, white hairs and whatnot, and just kind of break things up a little bit more, because you get a very very clear patch here that feels very big, and kind of, if you squint, you see that actually pops a little bit too much, uh, you also have this very similar red on on the shirt on the back below the beard. So I would try to bring a little bit more contrast between these colors. So then maybe just shift the hues a little bit here. So then it feels, you can actually see, just by doing this, you're gonna see like you know, the beard will stand out a little bit more, and then it starts to carve out some of these shapes. Maybe the beard could have a little bit of like a touch of like a different red, but you can actually see how much more interesting this starts to look, because then it makes it pop much more, right? You could be building that with specular too. Anyways, just think about bringing uh, bringing contrast at all times, right? It could even be contrast with like darker colors here too. Maybe at the tips of some of these cards, they could be a little bit darker, and so stuff like this, I think already looks much more interesting. And the last thing, I think pretty similar to all of the metals that I talked about already, but like like these metals here, uh, there is not a lot of cohesion on how the rust is built, and the connection points between some of these spikes to the actual pad, the shoulder pad, and the rust, it doesn't make a lot of sense. I'll like I can see like just like an ambient occlusion, some sort of like noise generator here across the whole piece, and the metal itself doesn't read like metal. It's almost looking like reading like concrete. I think this is really kind of killing this piece, honestly. These two metals are really kind of breaking the illusion for me, because you have a really good letter, really good subtle, sculpted details here and tilers and whatnot, and to me, like the metal is really at a different ball game. But good job, man. I think overall, like I can totally see the huge improvement between all of these pieces, and keep going, keep it up, and good stuff. All right, all right. So let's see. How are you guys doing? Following. All good? All good? Am I muted? Am I back? Am I back? Am I back? Sorry. Am I back? Am I back? I think I was. Am I back? All right, all right, all right, all right. Sorry, yeah. This new microphone has a button here to mute. Yeah, I'm drinking my water. This is my jug of water, keeping my water in check. All right, so this is Javier. Javier, if you are here, welcome aboard. If you're not, uh, hopefully you're catching this later. So let's just go over some of these pieces. Lots of cool creatures here. Really good stuff to see. As you know, I enjoy some creatures myself. Let's just take a look. Like some of these kind of really pique my attention. Man, this is awesome. I don't know if this is your own concept or not, but I really like this, and the rendering, the presentation, the execution of the textures. This is really badass. My only comment here would be, I would love to see this animated. Like just blinking and moving the face a little bit. Obviously, it might be asking too much, but overall, like the overall execution, I think is pretty cool. I like how simple the design language is, and then you are keeping a lot of the interesting details in the face and some of the neck, and this is really, really great. And I really love the presentation. Some of the eyes, I would probably think about maybe doing some very subtle eyelashes here, just to kind of bring some of these eyes together. There's this very harsh line around the eye. You could probably kind of break that a little bit, or even have a little bit of a tier line, maybe a thicker tier line if you don't have one. Um, but overall, man, this is really cool. I would love to see a little bit more subsurface on the ears. You have like a ring light here picking up some of these details. So just some of those subtle things that could be making this image pop a little bit more. But overall, really good, great execution. Uh, let's see, really good stuff. Yeah, great stuff, great execution, great shapes, great anatomy. You know, great emphasis on the style of the execution. I really like how much you are actually studying some of these fat pads and some of these shapes and the underlying structure. I think it really helps. Yeah, I like the pose with like keeping these two guys together, keeping it very classical and good stuff. I like it. Good job here, man. Not much to add from my perspective. Let's see. Yeah, I love the gesture. You seem to be able to really get that very subtle nuance on some of these poses, and I think that's really enjoyable. The model here looks really, really good. I love the concept as well. The final image, I think, doesn't really do justice to everything you've done. Uh, I think composition wise, lighting wise, the colors that you chose for the background, everything is kind of getting very flat and compressed and kind of muddy. Um, I would probably just pick different colors and especially for the background and um, probably carve out some of these forms a little bit more with lighting. You know what I'm saying? Like, cause like some of these gray shots here, I can actually see that everything is sculpted, everything like there's clear separation between all of the parts and it tells the story here very interesting. But in this final piece, it's just very hard to everything is just flat and equally distributed. I think we need to be able to kind of reshape a little bit more, but I don't know if I can give you like a clear answer right away. But like maybe we need to change the composition, maybe the lighting, but it's mostly just the overall image that I think it's not making justice, to the beautiful model you have here. Um, let's see. All right, we gotta click on this one, right? Ronaldinho, nice. I like that you are actually bringing your process in here. Uh, Good stuff. I like that you are also adding colors here, because these colors actually make a huge difference when actually seeing some of these pieces. I used to do back in Brazil many, many moons ago, I used to do live casting of real actors for movies and stuff. And whenever you get like a plaster cast of somebody, it's white and without colors, and usually looks very different than the person because it's missing not only the material definitions and the expression, but also the colors, right? It's a key component for us to recognize the patterns and the shapes. I think this is cool. This is coming along. I think you're probably as you say, still need to work on it. So that's cool. But I like that you actually added, you know, demonstrated some of you know, your process. And honestly, doing this without proper reference, like grabbing images from different eras and all of different cameras, different lenses, makes it much more challenging for sure. So good stuff here, man. I like the creature stuff a lot. So keep it up. Let's see. All right. All right, Javier. Good to see you there, buddy. Uh, all right, Pedro. Another buddy of mine. Good seeing you here, dude. Well, Pedro has been doing this for quite some time, and really great work overall. And similar to everybody else here, there's a clear uh, development throughout the years here. let's just look at the latest stuff because I've seen this before, and this is awesome. Uh, Great design, designed by himself. Not only a great design, but also fantastic execution. You can even see here. I really like this because even in the T pose, if you will, there's a lot of personality here on how he's grabbing the character and just posing the character in a regular stance. Really lovely execution, man. I love how much contrast you are building between the pieces and like the underlying surface details and you know the patterns. Uh, yeah, really great stuff overall. Um, yeah, I feel like the only my only comment here would be on the actual render itself. Um, I would probably try to let's see if I can pull it up here. Again, going back to everything that I'm doing in painting, and it's just kind of composition wise, right? Like to me, like the thing, it's not right or wrong, but maybe it's just a suggestion. But to me here, like this is like I look at this image, I look at this, right? Like this is kind of the brightest area of your image, where the light is hitting first and foremost. Uh, it's I mean, this is a cool area, but it's not the most interesting area to me. To me, what really makes this character interesting first is like the whole silhouette of the character, and you are not really highlighting that at all. Secondly, I think the head gives you a lot of attention. So I don't want to give you the classic like rule here, but I would probably make this first area of interest, and then like kind of maybe uh find a way of highlighting some of these edges, so then my eye travels everywhere else, so then you get a read from the head to the body. And some of these wings, they are, and I know they're backlit, and then like you have the subsurface and all of that, but I would try to like make them darker, and then maybe just do the translucency in the middle of them or something, so they feel like they are back. Right now they feel like, because they are so bright, it's just collapsing the image as a whole, right? So if I were to just kind of maybe do something like this, uh just kind of reseed them a little bit, and then you can just kind of build a mask here. Let me just grab a different brush, and if you were to just kind of do something like this. Oh, sorry, my wrong brush. All right, so then if you do something like this, and then you know what I'm saying, right? Like you still get the idea that this is back, but you can actually see how like much more interesting it starts to become. And then let's see if we do just kind of a little bit of a highlight here, and maybe we can kind of play with this. Obviously you want to do this with the shader, right, for your model, but and the rendering and mostly the lighting, right? Like you want to be controlling some of the light, so then it feels like that. So you can actually see like how boom, everything is in your face, and then here you start building a little bit more depth to the whole piece as a whole. And obviously the same idea applies here, right? So if you kind of were to just build a little bit more like this, I'm gonna do this very very quickly, right? Like, but if you build a little bit more interest here, and then we find a way of getting a little bit of more the silhouette here and there, and then let's see if I can just do something like this. No. Let's see. So then we bring a little bit more details here, and then let's just kind of get some of these silhouettes, and then kind of like the light is falling off, so then it doesn't have to be as strong here. And then this overlap here, this is kind of in front of us. So how can we make this pop from the background? Obviously, I'm just painting, right? So I'm using like like painting techniques, if you will. But we can like in 3D, you can actually be carving with all of these lights. So then you set the camera, and then you can do this in real, for example, right? Like you had another camera, you have all of these lights, and then you start carving out all of these forms and playing with the intensity, playing with the fall off, all of these things. And then I would same deal here, right? Like maybe a lot of these can be in the textures too. Some of these can be in the actual model, but you can actually see like the little difference, right? Like how I'm actually shifting the interest from. All right, so if we go to the original one, and then if you go to the different one, right, this is kind of reading, much more. There's much more presence in this piece, at least for me. You can also be building with a little bit of depth of field, so everything that it's like very close to you and very far, you can kind of be blurring that, which we call like edge control in painting, whatever, right? Like finding different sort of edges to kind of push things out and in and all of that, right? So yeah, lots of cool stuff here, dude, and I really love your work, and I like how much you've been pushing yourself the last couple of years, and it's clearly paying off. So good stuff overall. Yeah, this piece, I remember when you finished this one too. Yeah, like a year ago. Good stuff, man. I mean, we were at THU, we talked a lot, and I think you're definitely in the right track to, continue developing yourself and your skills. And this is, really good presentation too on, from the execution on the materials, from the low poly, the materials, the textures, the UVs, great pose, great render, great presentation, right? So good stuff, man. Really good job, dude. Uh, all right, we got a few more. Let's see. Cole, not sure if you're here, but if you are here, thanks for sending me your portfolio. If you're not here, hopefully you watch this later. All right, let's take a look. And again, I can clearly see development over time. Hey, what's up, buddy? So development, right? This is clearly from uh not as recent as some of the other pieces. This is a really good, great piece overall. All of these pieces that are in poses, I think your guys are really going the extra mile and like posing them and thinking about the storytelling and the shapes. Great execution on the face. The modeling looks really, really good. This is great. Really cool. The only thing here that stood out to me, and then again, I saw this earlier too, but great presentation on this beard. I kudos, really like that. Let me just make this dark because this is kind of bugging me. All right, so you know how repetitive, like my eye goes directly to some of these repetitive shapes, and again, sorry if I'm repeating myself, but most of these feedback are very similar. So all of these repetitive shapes, they are like really too noisy, right? Like, and then if everything becomes too repetitive, and then you can actually see this pattern here. So how can we break this up a little bit and finding a couple like clusters? Like you get like a little cluster, and then you move this cluster around, and then you got another one here, another one here. How can you build like this? Feels like a ball of fur rather than like some sort of like movement with sculpted hair, right? Like imagine if you were sculpting this. Like right now you see like this big ball, and the actual surface is very round and simple. How can we build you know movement using some of these cards and these clumps and bringing more three-dimensionality into them, right? Like breaking this very simple silhouette here, right? Like can we do this and then bring it this? Can we add a little bit more weight and then a little bit more this? You know what I'm saying? Like finding a little bit more interesting shapes, and like maybe these braids, they are actually a little bit curved, so you have a little bit more like, so they are running on top but they also sag down, they fall down a little bit more. But anyways, I overall really, really good. I really like this. Unfortunately, in this piece, the beard kind of disappeared. All of that great work disappeared because It doesn't look bad, but I don't think it's reading as strong in some of these other pieces. But anyways, I know this is an old piece, but great job there overall. Looks pretty cool. Classic concept from Cedric. Like the execution, I think the hair is similar to the other hair that I looked at previously. The shader is not really appealing. It's very harsh, and I'm not sure where you build it on marmoset. So one trick that I used to do a lot, back in the day. I haven't looked at the recent marmoset, but I used to add a little bit of subsurface to my hair just to kind of be able to get a little bit of more translucent shadows and kind of give that softness impression that hair tends to have. Depending on the shader and depending on the approach, it's not necessarily, and it's completely wrong, like it's not completely wrong. I shouldn't say that, because depending if you are doing like a proper, you know, hair shading model, it will be based on a lot of translucency. But anyways, we don't need to get there. But you know what I'm saying? Like if this is just like a regular simple BRDF and very simple shader, adding a little bit of subsurface can help you with that smoothness of the shadows and the actual curves themselves. But anyways, overall, like I could clearly see that you capture the face. I personally don't like a lot of these very harsh lines. It doesn't feel very organic, and also some of that it's in the concept, but the concept, it's a 2D piece with a lot of stylization, and when you translate some of that, especially here in the forehead, it doesn't it doesn't look like wrinkles, neither scars, like looks like just a bunch of lines. It also doesn't really look like stylized forms. But overall, good stuff here. I like the overall model. uh, I think some of the text, this lighting looks a bit much cooler. I mean, it is cooler, right? Like it's bluer, but I think like overall, it's a much stronger presentation than this one to me. There is more contrast between the colors, and I think it's more harmonious, if you will. Actually, this one too, like now that I'm seeing this, having a little bit of movement here, I think it really helps me to not stay paying attention to just one single thing, and it gives the sense of this is a 3D model. This fur here like looks beautiful, gorgeous. The shader. I wish I was seeing a little bit more of this on the actual hair, right? I can still see some of these cards and some of these things are a little bit too harsh. But man, overall, great work, and this is probably your latest one, yeah. Oh, from Andrew, right on. So you took his class, good stuff. Love the face, love the execution here. Badass, some of these subtle, very avatar-ish type of eyes, nose, and like some of these emissive stuff looks gorgeous. When it goes to the body, I'm seeing this very big open area here that I'm not seeing any, like secondary information or anatomy or believability in some of this skin, which bothers me a little bit comparing to what I'm seeing here, right? Like, so it feels like this is kind of a level of execution, then it goes down, and then you kind of rushed a little bit. It doesn't feel as natural to me. But yeah, the eyes and the face, great job there. Great render as well. And I can clearly see here this is still a sketch. Or it looks like a sketch. So it maybe doesn't look like a sketch. It doesn't look as finalized as the face itself. I would love to see a little bit more polished if you want to continue working on this piece on some of these other areas too. Uh, but yeah, overall, strong piece. And I know you probably learn a lot from Andrew. Love that guy's work, and good stuff, man. Good stuff. Uh, good job. Keep it up. All right. Got a two more. I said it was gonna be five, but I ended up picking seven. So just bear with me, two more, and hopefully you guys are enjoying this. So this is from Imanol. Hopefully I'm pronouncing your name correct. Uh, Thanks for sending your portfolio. Let's just take a quick look. If you are here, let me know. If not, you can check this later. Cool. All right. So a couple pieces stood out to me in a good way. This guy here, let's just take a quick look. Nice. Love this wildlife. Yeah. This is pretty cool, man. Good presentation too. Doing these feathers, this is not easy, an easy feat. Uh, yeah, good breakdown of your process. I personally think this image is not as strong as some of these other ones, so I like to keep like your my strongest image at the top because that's usually the piece that people will look first. You know, I know you're bringing attention to the face here, but everything is so blown out, and some of these details here that you have, it doesn't really look like the skin. The material treatment doesn't look as nice. It's missing that subsurface quality. And because you are so close, everything is just kind of getting so much attention, and it's kind of lacking that, sort of fidelity. So honestly, this piece here would go from just some material love here, just some material work, just working on the shaders themselves. I think it would take this whole creature to a next level. Like even a little bit more work on the colors on the beak and some of these transitions and the material of the feathers, some of the lighting and the post processing that you have here, very harsh. I think it's kind of working against you a little bit. I know you're trying to create like this very dramatic look, but looking at the model itself, I see a lot of potential, and I think it's missing that softness uh, that this character requires. But overall, really, really cool. Good execution. I think it's just working on the materials more that can take this to the next level. All right, it's pretty cool. Oh, cool. You mentioned me and Chaba. That's cool. That's good. Like doing these carvings is always fun. I like the execution here. Like some of these forms, getting those overlaps going. It's pretty nice to see. Um, Good stuff, man. Looks pretty cool. Did you actually scan a pumpkin, or did you just like model? I saw someone the other day actually scanned, did a photogrammetry of a pumpkin and then he carved digitally. I thought that was pretty interesting. Looks like you didn't do it this time, right? You just kind of built a 3D model. That's pretty cool. Good stuff, man. You're cheating with the nose, the nose wouldn't be able to come out this far unless you cut out of a piece of the pumpkin and glue it in, which sometimes we do. But yeah, good stuff. I like overall presentation, overall material, the execution here. I think it's very strong compared to these other pieces. Oh, you downloaded a free scan to do this one. Oh, okay, cool. That's cool. That's sweet. Let's see. All right, great render. I like this already. The materials. Um, Maybe the beard and the hair could have a little bit more love. I guess similar to what we talked about on the other one, right? Like just getting a little bit more love on the materials and some of the anti-aliasing here, some of these contact shadows. Some of maybe the more technical stuff in the. I don't know where you rendered this. Oh, is this Marmoset? Yes. So yeah, I don't recall exactly. I haven't looked at latest Marmoset rendering, but I'm pretty sure you can make all of this much softer and work on some of this subtleness to come to bring everything to life. Like be careful whenever like you have like a stubble on the hair or like a shaved head, if you will, hair. Like the specular will be very different here because there's still a stubble unless this guy like really shaved and polished, and then you would get a similar response to the light. But here I would imagine you get a little bit more pores, a little bit of a different response, which helps connect this part with the hair, which brings this whole piece together, right? uh the model here, looks a little bit too flat, like the overall structure, of the head. But yeah, great execution otherwise. I feel like this jacket, great pose. Yeah, no, it was just that angle, never mind. uh Yeah, it looks pretty cool. The hair is the thing. The hair and the mustache are the two things that kind of stood out to me, honestly. Uh, I like the pose. Yeah, good stuff, man. Looks cool. Great stuff. All right, and we have Vahan. Sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong, but Vahan. My bad. I tried. Thanks for sending your portfolio. I like that it has very different styles and different pieces. I saw this before, and I love the concept here and this whole idea. It looks pretty cool. Similar to everything that I've been talking about, right? Like, how can we take this aquarium to the next level? And I see you adding a lot of details to, the wood pieces, the grass, the leaves, the fish, and all of that, right? But it's the presentation itself is still missing a very key component, which is the water. So I don't have a sense of the water here in this image, right? And this is true for a lot of things that we do. Try to remember where these things are placed. So thinking about the atmospherics about the place, it could be via lighting, it could be adding fog, it could be adding dirt, dust and whatnot. So what's really kind of killing this image for me, or kind of not contributing, I should say, is just the water itself, right? Imagine if you had a little bit of depth to the water, some subtle bubbles coming here and coming there, a little bit of foam at the top, like all of this green moss, or algae, if you will. Like, maybe they are just a little bit of different tones and different colors. You shift things a little bit, and then you have a little bit of sand accumulated on some of these edges. But anyways, I'm just not discussing your idea conceptually here. I'm just discussing the actual execution of your piece, right? uh some cool stuff here. Not sure if you are, maybe I should read. I'm not sure if you are kind of projecting some textures, some photos to kind of get some of these shapes. But I think you can be working in some of these alphas a little bit more. The actual model itself, the sculpture, it's probably lacking a little bit of like secondary forms, tertiary forms, a little bit hard to read, but it doesn't have the weight, like if you look at the whole surface as a whole. um, it's a little bit hard for me to give like very direct feedback because I don't have a lot of context here. But overall, if you're just trying to mimic like a real fish, I think it's just missing, some information, some nuance that I think it's important to capture. And I saw you getting into building some dragons, so that's cool to see. I like this pose much better than the close-up shot. I think some of these images are strong because they're showing the whole context. Again, talking about composition as well, like the whole image is very bright, so it would be cool to be able to create some sort of like distribution of lights across the whole image, so you can actually navigate the points of interest and all of that. Um, just talking about the execution itself, building some of these scales, the variety, like working with alphas and all of that. I would recommend you looking at some other, pieces or other works of people that have done a lot of dragons before. You're gonna see how some of these go from different patterns into more natural transitions, into much more dense areas to more subtle areas. The texture here too is also very noisy, and kind of every single crevice has a dark spot, right? So you could be breaking that away. The red is also very flat, just like a single shade of red, and the white is just kind of brushed on. So I think this feels like it's a good challenge, at that time for you. So, just keep building on that, right? Like try to kind of next model work a little bit more on the model itself. Like how can you take this model next one step further, and then when you go to the texturing, do the same thing, right? Like texturing next step further, and when you go to the composition and the presentation, the rendering, materials, lighting, how can you take one step further? And then you gotta go one by one, like one step at a time. And then just make sure like every project you build, you are kind of layering all of these complexities. So then eventually you're going to be able to do another dragon, much more complicated, with a much better presentation, with much better materials and all of that, right? But every phase, all right, modeling, what can I do on the modeling to make my modeling a little bit better? You're not going to be able to jump from like here to here, right? So let's go from here to here. And then, okay, texturing, let's go from here to here. Materials, let's go from here to here. And then build up on where you are. So good stuff. Well, guys, I guess that's it for today. Anyone has any leftover questions? Or you guys see me well? Because I got an error here. Can you give me like a thumbs up? Or, well, someone just commented here, like, Lucas, are you guys, everything all right? Okay, cool. So I think that's it for today, guys. Again, thanks everybody for joining today, sending me the portfolio, and participating and commenting here. And I wanted to try this here and see how it works out, and hopefully you guys learned something from it. And yeah, like I said, I'm back. I'm back to doing this, to sharing, to spreading, to learning, and I have lots of cool plans for all of us. So thanks everybody for joining. This will be recorded, so hopefully I'll do more soon. Stay tuned on I'm using the Instagram community channel, whatever, to kind of, try out some of these different things, and that's how we've been communicating. So stay tuned there. If you haven't join there. Make sure to like, subscribe, and all of those YouTube things too, because I definitely want to use this platform more and more for doing some of these things. All right. Take it easy, guys. Thanks again. See you guys later. Bye.